foggy night, shadows creeping slow. Whispers in the wind, where'd Johnny go? Blood on the hay, pitchfork gleam. Midnight moon, a witness to a scream. Barn doors creaking, secrets kept tight. Old man Joe seen a deadly sight. No justice found, just a broken plow. Crows peck the ground, dead man's vow. Murder in the meadow, lies thick as dust. Promises shattered, betrayed by trust. Chaos in the cornfields.
I'm here with Country Diggers. Today I'm going to be doing a traditional folk ballad called Alabama Bound. Now there is a white version and a black version, and I'm going to do both of them. Okay, the first one is going to be Lead Bellies. That's the black version, and the second version will be The Preacher Got Drunk, which is from the Tennessee Ramblers, and that's the white version. So stay tuned. Alabama Bound by Lead Belly. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. And if the train don't stop and turn around, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. Don't you leave me here, now don't you leave me here. Don't you leave me here, now don't you leave me here. And if you will go anyhow, just leave a dime for bail. Just leave me a dime for bail. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. And if the train don't stop and turn around, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. You ought to be like me, you ought to be like me, you ought to be like me, you ought to be like me. You can turn your good heart just and let that King Kong be. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. And if the train don't stop and turn around, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. The preacher's in the stand, the preacher's in the stand. Pass his hat around, pass his hat around. Sing, brothers and sisters, shoot your money to me. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. And if the train don't stop and turn around, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. Oh, that preacher preach, oh, that preacher preach. Sisters, they turn around, sisters, they turn around. Yes, the deacons in the corner holler, sweet gal. I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. And if the train don't stop and turn around, I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. All right, that one was Lead Belly's version. And now I'll sing the white version, which is Preacher Got Drunk by Tennessee Ramblers. All right, here's the white version of Alabama Bound by Tennessee Ramblers. Well, the preacher got drunk. He threw the Bible down. He told the congregation, I'm Alabama bound. I'm Alabama bound. I'm Alabama bound. If the train don't run, I got a mule to ride. Well, I've been in New York City and I've been in New York town. Good Lord, but I've been in the mountains with the blues all around. I jumped in the river and I started to drown. I spotted a redhead woman, good Lord, I couldn't go down. I'm Alabama bound. I'm Alabama bound. If the train don't run, I've got a mule to ride. All right, now the story of Alabama Bound. All right, I'll be reading from bluegrassmessengers.com. Alabama Bound is a traditional song and fiddle tune widely known through the U.S. South. Leadbelly recorded it in 1940. The first collected version was in 1908. It was first published in 1909. The first recording was from Papa Charlie Jackson in 1925. And you can find it in the John and Alan Lomax American Ballads and Folk Songs. And that book was published in 1934. All right, on to the story. In an interview with Alan Lomax, Jelly Roll Morton, 1890 to 1941, claimed to have written the song Alabama Bound in 1905, which he recorded for Bluebird in 1939 as Don't You Leave Me Here, The Devil's Music, A History of the Blues. Page 61 by Giles Oakley in 1997. In 1939, Jelly Roll Morton claimed to Alex Lomax to have made the song for up himself in 1905 when he was in the Alabama Barrel House circuit. For his 1939 recording, Morton was told to change the name from Alabama Bound to avoid possible copyright conflicts. Morton said, "But I am getting Alabama Bound in the session with Bluebird, and the title must be changed to Don't You Leave Me Here." Morton apparently left the Alabama Bound lyrics that he knew off his recording, which featured his vocals on only 2 verses. The Don't You Leave Me Here, Don't You Leave Me Here songs were also known as Elder Brown's in Town in Texas, and a similar version to Morton's was recorded by Laura Smith in 1927. Little is known about the life of blues singer Laura Smith. She is thought to have come from Indianapolis, Indiana, and is known to have toured the Toba, T-O-B-A, vaudeville circuit in the early 1920s. Her recording career began in 1924 on the Oka label and ended in 1927 on Victor. Smith's 1927 version of Jelly Roll Morton, Don't You Leave Me Here, is quite good and features lyrics that differ from Morton's classic 1939 solo version of the song. The first lyric section is more of an intro. It has a different melody and rhythm from Morton's version. The next 5 verses are similar to the standard blues jazz versions. The third line of each verse has some unusual vocal phrasing. From Songsters and Saints by Paul Oliver, Thomas of College Station included Don't You Leave Me Here in some current folk songs, which he presented as a paper in 1912 to the Texas Folklore Society. Some years later, Gates Thomas published his own fuller version that included Alabama Bound with Elder Green verses, which he dated at 1908. Several others were collected before or during the First World War in Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama itself. Its widespread distribution suggests its early date as a folk song. though it was described as a dance. A song with the title Alabama Bound was published as early as 1910 by Ed Rogers and Saul Aronson, which shows a clear link to the chorus of the folk song. In 1909, a white New Orleans theater pianist named Robert Hoffman published I'm Alabama Bound, subtitled The Alabama Blues. Though not a blues in the strict 12-bar, from it did feature enough characteristics to be considered one of the first published blues. Here's some info on Lynn Abbott, Doug Surfoff. It certainly sounded good to me. Sheet music, Southern vaudeville, and the commercial ascendantry of the blues. American Music, Volume 14. Another historic landmark of blues and sheet music is I'm Alabama Bound, claimed by Alabama-born, New Orleans-based mainstream theater pianist Robert Hoffman. It was originally published in 1909 by Robert Eberman, a clerk at the D.H. Holmes department store on Canal Street. The cover of the original Eberman edition notes that although Hoffman adapted it as a ragtime two-step, I'm Alabama Bound was also known as the Alabama Blues. The implication is that by 1909, the term blues was known to describe a distinctive folk musical genre from which Hoffman extracted his melody. Paul Oliver has noted that Alabama Bound was one of the song clusters which included Don't Leave Me Here and Elder Green's In Town. Oliver cites supplementary race recordings of it by Papa Charlie Jackson, Harvey Hull, Charlie Patton, and Henry Thomas. And there are others as well. Jelly Roll Morton claimed to have originated the tune when he hit Mobile in 1905. And the relationship of Hoffman's composition to the blues, Morton later recorded as Don't You Leave Me Here, is obvious. I'm Alabama Bound was also published in 1909 by the legendary African-American concert pianist Blind Boone as one of three melodies constituting Boone's Rag Melody number 2, Strange from Flat Branch. Robert Hoffman's version appears to have enjoyed the better measure of commercial success. Shortly after that version's initial publication, the copyright was transferred to the Music Shop, another Canal Street operation, which put out a new edition with a garnish coonsong style cover illustration. At the end of 1909, Prince's band, not Prince, but it just says 1909 Prince's band, made a commercial recording of it. And in 1910, a vocal edition appeared with lyrics attributed to the Music Shop's proprietor, John J. Purdeller. The lyrics include such blues-ready couplets as I'm Alabama bound, I'm Alabama bound. I've tried you out, I've got to turn you down. I done told you, man, for to be like me, just drink good whiskey. Let your cocaine be. According to the cover of the vocal edition, Hoffman's Alabama Bound was being sung with great success in mainstream vaudeville by the White Rag Trio. By 1910, the title was turning up in newspaper reports from African American entertainers. On a bill with Ma Rainey and the Belmont Street Theater in Pensacola, Florida, in February 1910, Watkins and Watkins were featuring a new act written by themselves entitled I'm Alabama Bound. A couple months later, a member of Richard and Pringle's minstrel band complained, "We would like to know what to do when a band of 15 pieces under the leadership of Abel Frank Simpson renders standard overtunes from T.I. Troverto." I'm not sure what that is. William Tell, etc. As some admirer of classic music shouts, "Play us Alabama Bound." Well, it must be the way of the world. Source was Lynn Abbott and Doug Suroff. It certainly sounds good to me. Sheet music, Southern vaudeville, and commercial ascendry of the blues. American Music, Volume 14. Blind Boone's Rag Melody No. 2 by John W. Blind Boone was published in 1909. The Flat Branch was an area of Columbia, Missouri, where many amateur song purveyors tried their wares in the bars and the alleys. Boone seemed to spend as much time in these areas as he did entertaining the elite in concert halls as a savant oddity, a blind colored man with talent. Although this is not a true rag, but rather a collection of songs that influenced ragtime, it still contains some light syncoperation. I know I can't say some of the words. Reminiscent of the genesis of the genre from the previous decade. It opens and closes with "Carrie's Gone to Kansas City," a well-known ditty of the day. I'm Alabama Bound, the Mississippi Valley song that follows, was also released by itself as a song rag that same year by Robert Hoffman, and is considered to be the first blues-based tune ever in print. Some ragtime historians think that the Alabama Bound chorus of Rag Melody No. 2 may be the first publication of Boogie Woogie. That was cited by Ann Sears, John William Blind Boone piano composer, Merit, Not Sympathy Wins, Black Music Research Journal, Volume 9. Preacher in the Pulpit. Preacher Got Drunk lyrics appeared in fragments collected in Alabama and New Orleans in 1915 and 1916. In White General and Music Labor number 51 and 52. Preacher in a pulpit jumping up and down, Negroes in the cornfield shouting, I'm Alabama Bound. The preacher in the pulpit put his Bible down, and all the men in the cotton field shouted, I'm Alabama Bound. White remarks the first line comes from the common type of songs about women in which a good-looking woman, a blondie woman, a brunette woman, etc., make a preacher lay his Bible down. In the section songs about women, White gives several examples. It takes a dark-skinned baby to make a preacher throw his Bible down. Besides the blues version, first recorded in 1925 by Charlie Jackson, a hillbilly country song with the preacher lyric entitled "The Preacher Got Drunk and Laid Down His Bible" by the Tennessee Ramblers was recorded in 1928. I'm Alabama Bound was popularized by Leadbelly, who recorded it in June 15, 1940 in New York City. There were several recordings, other popular recordings, done in 1940 besides Leadbelly's. The previously mentioned recording by Morton and a jump blues recording by Louis Jordan. Among the early blues recording were two by Henry Thomas. From Devil's Music, two of Thomas's blues, "Don't Ease Me In" and "Don't You Leave Me Here," written in 1928 and 1929, respectively, are pretty much the same melody with only slight different words. More interestingly, they both relate to a very popular theme, "Don't Leave Me Here, I'm Alabama Bound." In 1929, Thomas cut a variation of "Don't Ease Me In" with Alabama Bound lyrics. "Don't You Leave Me Here," Henry Thomas, 1929. "Don't leave me here, oh don't you leave me here, don't you leave me here. It's all right, it's all night long, sweet papa, don't leave me here. I'm going away and it won't be long, just ease your chain, loving babe, I'm Alabama bound." Another early blues by Furry Lewis has the Alabama Bound lyrics. Deputy told Cassie, "You must leave town. Believe to my soul I'm Alabama bound." Cassie Jones by Furry Lewis. And the blues standard, "Baby Please Don't Go," is based on Alabama Bound from form and was originally called "Don't Leave Me Here" until the lyrics were changed. The "Baby Don't Go," Origins of a Blues by Max Hames. "Baby Please Don't Go" is often associated with Poor Big Joe Williams. In 1963, Paul Oliver credited him with composing it, who recorded several post-war versions of the song. But both he and Baby Doo Caston drew a group of earlier blues songs: "Alabama Bound," "Elder Green's in Town," "Don't Leave Me Here." Oliver reports that a Texas collector published an Alabama Bound, BOWN, with Elder Green versions, which he dated from 1908. Excuse me. As Oliver notes, in 1925, banjoist Papa Charlie Jackson's "I'm Alabama Bound" showed the links between all three titles. Elder Green would be featured on later recordings by Blind Lemon Jefferson, Charlie Patton, 1920s, and in 1958 by Mississippi singer-guitarist Cat Iron. Alabama Bound was recorded by Leadbelly in 1935 and 1940, and cropped up circa 1956 by Lonnie Dugan during the British skiffle craze. Okay. Wallace "Don't Leave Me Here" was first recorded in 1927 by a Mississippi group who were sometimes billed as Sonny Boy and His Pals, or Longcleave Reed and Little Harvey Hull. Tampa Red and Georgia Tom backed each other's vocals on "Mama Don't Leave Me Here," 1931, and "Don't Leave Me Here," 1932, respectively. But there are two versions of an unrelated blues. Washboard Sam recorded "Don't Leave Me Here" in 1938 again, unheard, but is probably an unheard by this author that is writing this article. But is probably an urbanized version of the Longcleve Reed title or a Baby Please Don't Go. The melody from this group of songs was utilized and speeded up with more aggressive approach to the vocal. Indeed, Big Joe Williams' first post-war version of Baby Please Don't Go was titled Don't You Leave Me Here, made in 1947. Though the string bass of Ransom Nolan and the drums of Judge Riley have been added to Sonny Boy's harp, giving a Chicago blues feel to the song, Joe himself curiously harks back to many of the lines in his 1935 recording with fiddle and washboard. These include the reference to his long chain on "and my baby's done" line. Joe substitutes the phrase "don't you leave me here" for "baby please don't go," and changes the southern locale of New Orleans for the more relevant one of Chicago, where he cut this track. Final notes: Lomax collected various versions which were slightly different from the standard Alabama Bound songs. These Alabama Bound songs feature the Boats Up the River lyric and are similarly titled. Typical lyrics include, "Oh, the boat's up the river and the tide's gone down. I believe to my soul she's Alabama/waterbound. Lovers are reunited by boat and train, Alabama bound." The Arctic explorer Cook is also mentioned as being Alabama bound to escape the cold. Some recordings include author brother-in-law Armstrong, The Boats Up the River, 1940, Delmore Brothers, I'm Alabama Bound, Bluebird, 1939, Roscoe Holcomb, Boats Up the River on Holcomb 1 and Holcomb CD 1. The traditional ballad index online attempts to separate them, Alabama Bound 1 and Alabama Bound 2, but fails to do so. Well, hope y'all enjoyed that. I like the Lead Belly version. Now, you can get it on iTunes. It's just called Alabama Bound. And I've also got The Preacher Got Drunk by Uncle Shuffalo. I got Uncle Shuffalo's version. The Preacher Got Drunk, Uncle Shuffalo, and his Haint Holla Hootenanny. And the other one is Preacher Got Drunk by Tennessee Ramblers. I hadn't got that one, but I've got the other two. And that was it. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.